Stories. Stories, stories, stories. We love stories, and we always have. And who do I mean by we? I mean all of us, human beings. We are story listening and storytelling machines. Even look around in modern day. Look at the number of books that are published, e-books. Think of the poetry that's written. Think of the television programs. Think of movies. Think of all of the songs that you hear. They're all, one form or another, a story. And we love hearing stories. We also love telling stories, and we do that all of the time. And you know who the biggest storyteller of all really is? And this is a trick question. Who do you think the biggest storyteller of all time is? It's you. It's you. Now, you may not be a published author. You might not be a writer. You might not be the director. You might not be a songwriter. You might not be a singer. But you are telling yourself stories all the time. From when you get up in the morning to when you go to sleep at night. And guess what? Even while you're sleeping and you're dreaming, you're telling yourselves stories. And it's a great thing. It's actually how we learned. It's how we advanced. It's how we got to the point where we are today. It's what saved us as a species, was our ability to pass on information in the form of stories. Because, hey, for the longest time, we didn't have these great smartphones and the internet and all of that great stuff where we could Google things. And even if we roll time back a little bit farther, we didn't even have books, really, that were readily available to everybody. And if we roll back the clock even more, there was no written word at all. But there's always been stories. In fact, we're hardwired for stories, which is actually really cool. Stories can take and serve us in so many ways. Stories can also hold us back in so many ways. And here's how that can happen. Because as I said, we're telling stories all the time. We're listening to stories all the time, and we're telling stories all the time. And we're telling, our biggest audience for our stories is ourselves. We run stories in the back of our mind nonstop. From the minute we get up, as I said, to the minute we go to bed, and we tell ourselves stories in the form of dreams and imagination, even while we're sleeping. You walk by somebody in the hall that regularly you greet or you smile at or you say hi to at work, or maybe it's in the neighborhood. You have people that you interact with at work on a regular basis, maybe even in your own home. You have people that you're talking to. Well, in your own home, of course, you have people that you're talking to. But there tends to be a rhythm and a form to the kind of interactions that you have, whether it's in home, with your extended family, it's in your workplace, it's in your neighborhood, it's when you're shopping. There's always what you perceive to be an expected flow of the way things go. If things step outside of that expected flow, you'll immediately start to tell yourself a story. You'll be searching for an explanation. Why didn't they look at me? Why didn't they smile? Why didn't they say good morning today? Why didn't they say good night when they left? Just as a few examples. Why didn't they send me a text message? Like, man, I messaged them like 12 minutes ago and they still haven't gotten back to me. You're going to look for an explanation for that rather than just letting it rest. You'll look for the explanation, and the way you'll look for the explanation is you will start to tell yourself stories to cover that off. The disadvantage, of course, is that you can often be way off the mark on the story that you tell yourself to explain a circumstance that occurred. It's probably much better, rather than telling yourself stories to explain circumstances and everyday occurrences, rather than doing that, if you have something that occurs that makes you uncomfortable, go to the source and ask a question. Or have a little patience. If they didn't text back to you or message back to you in 12 minutes, it's okay. You never know. Maybe the battery died. Maybe they're busy, maybe they're in a meeting. If the person walked by you in the hallway and didn't give you their normal good morning greeting, and you're running a story about whatever story you run, maybe you didn't realize that actually they had like the world's worst worst toothache, and all I could do was concentrate on, I just need to get to the car and get to the dentist, right? But it's not a story that's going to immediately pop into your mind. What's going to pop into your mind is maybe that they don't like you anymore, maybe, did I say something to upset them? There's going to be all kinds of those things that roll through. So as much as stories are a fantastic way of remembering our history, a fantastic way of passing our history on to others, a fantastic way of learning and entertaining ourselves, we want to watch the stories that we tell ourselves, which are the most stories we're exposed to at any given time, are stories based on what's really occurring and not what we make up. On the other hand, stories are also super, super powerful. And there is definitely a role for telling stories to yourself about who you want to be and how you want to be and what you want to accomplish in your life. Those stories will move you forward. Those stories will propel you to greatness. Those stories need to be the subject of another video. But today, the little piece that I want to share about stories is just be careful what stories you tell yourself about what's going on around the world to you. Because you never know what's going on in somebody else's mind. You never know what's just gone on. Have grace, be comfortable, ask questions, and don't get down on yourself by telling you stories about why something didn't go the way you thought it should go. Talk to you soon. Be the best you can be. Tell yourself that story.